Hi, thanks for joining me again today. This is the beginning of what may be a considerable project, the Schlossberg book. Why do I say that? Well, first, let me just let you know that I really like this book. I could tell you a lot of stories. I was doing some custom mouthpiece work with Jeff Park, and he said, let's pull an all-nighter. So we went over to Van Nuys, and I didn't have anything to do in the shop while he worked. So I just played out of the Schlossberg book all night. And that's because he happened to have one. I didn't have any music with me, so I played a few things from memory, and then I played out of the Schlossberg book. This is the book that had the biggest influence on me, and using the exercises in this book, I figured out how to play the trumpet. And you can do the same thing. But there's a great deal that you're working with, and I'm going to try and take this in simple steps. I hope I don't overload you, but that is definitely a possibility. The exercises look very simple. The actual fact is, the simplest things to do on the trumpet are some of the most difficult things to do well. And that's why we need to work on fundamentals. So this is a great book for fundamentals. Now, it can be a little bit confusing when you read instructions, and Mr. Schlossberg gives some really clear instructions. He says, he gives this little exercise. It's in the introductory notes, which is just before page 1 in the book, right across from the long notes drills. By the way, I'm going to go ahead and show you my copy, because, for what it's worth, yeah, it's fallen apart, obviously. And here it is. And you can see that it costs $3.50. And now, of course, it doesn't cost that anymore, and probably some of you have stolen it off the internet. But it is still being published, and I strongly recommend that you get a hold of a copy. Now, if you're working exclusively off an iPad, then, you know, whatever, you need a PDF. So I understand, but we want to keep those creators creating, so please get the actual book. Now, it's very easy to be confused by these instructions, so I'm going to read a couple of them. He says, before any actual instrument playing is begun, the mouthpiece must be played daily for at least 2 minutes. And then he says, slurring, staccato form exercises from G concert to C. 1/3 of the mouthpiece should be placed on the upper lip, 2/3 on the lower lip. The following mouthpiece drills should be played daily. And I'm going to go ahead and play that for you. And then I want to spend the rest of our time kind of digging into what are we paying attention to, what are we cultivating, what are we aware of when we play it, what are we aiming at musically. So a key issue is when you play exercises, and long tone drills would definitely be an exercise, common exercise, then what are we concentrating on? That's a really good question. I challenge you to notice what you are paying attention to. Now, most of you, if you have musical sensibilities, you're paying attention to the qualities of the sound, for example. And that's a great place to start. So that's where I'm going to start today. Now, when you buzz on the mouthpiece, this is not playing on the trumpet. So there's our starting note. Okay, That's the exercise. Now, I realize most people don't play that exercise. They just skip over and start on page 1 and play the long note drills, or maybe not. Maybe they find something interesting. And this is the real issue when we're playing these things. We're always looking for something that gives us musical satisfaction. So I hope that you can learn through my suggestions how to find musical satisfaction in doing these simple things, because then your playing is going to improve very rapidly. Now, there's a tremendous amount that goes into what I just did, and you know that. Go ahead and try it for yourself. Some of you may have an easy time of it. Many of you may have difficulty. In what ways? Pitch accuracy, good response, or the basic sound. So that's 3 chunks of stuff right there, just accuracy of the pitch. You can drive yourself crazy with that. So what James Stamp used to famously do is either play the piano along with, or have his students play the piano as they were buzzing on the mouthpiece, so they have a pitch reference. And that's a great thing for you to do. You can do that at the piano. Any keyboard will do. You can do it with a drone. So you take your tuner and you sound a drone. And many of you are using more current devices, so you might have, you might have those AirPods, or you might have something like this, and you can play the tuner and listen, and then you have a target. Targets is a very important concept. So usually what we're doing when we're playing exercises is we're trying to aim at a lot of targets at once. So I'm going to concentrate on one thing here, and 2 things actually. One is the breath, what's happening with the breath, and the other is what's the result of the breath, or the sound. And so the first thing you have to do when you're working on these things is try and find your best sound. Try and find the quality of sound that is that sounds like a voice. Now, that might be a little challenging on the mouthpiece, but it is what it is. So talk about qualities of sound, and please read my little essay on tone if you get a chance. When we talk about quality of sound, we're talking about something that's not describable. It's knowable, you can taste it, you can experience it, and it's great if you have people with whom you share the same kind of nomenclature, the same kind of word explanations for things. Because when you listen to something together, then you can talk that over. Maybe you record yourself playing, and you have a trumpet buddy listen to the playback with you, and you ask, what do you hear? And then you tell what you hear. Or you go to a concert and you talk about it afterwards, hopefully not during the performance. And then you have you start to form a language between yourselves. And this is really, really helpful, because we have to know what it is that we're aiming for. And having some way to describe it is very helpful, even though it is relatively indescribable. I probably mentioned this before, but I had a student who I had a lot of fun with when he was in high school. He's a professional player now. And I asked him, so what does an orange taste like? And he paused for a moment and he said, well, it's kind of orangey. And I said, that's right. How else can you describe it? Because, you say, well, it's like this, or it's like that, or it's, something like, or you could say it's sweet, it's sour, it's fresh, see, but none of those words work. So this is what we're working on. So the best I can do you is, under these circumstances, listening, is to try and give you an example of the different kind of sounds that you may hear. And most importantly, what it is that you want to aim for. So, if we start on the trumpet, so one aspect of sound that you want to concentrate on is stability. Now, I want you to think about this. There are two different kinds of stability, maybe more. Yeah, there are lots, and if you think about physics, or especially nuclear physics, then there are many kinds of stability. But let's just think in terms of our three-dimensional world for now. One kind of stability is, it's like you have a high-tension tower with these huge heavy wires that are going for miles and miles, and those towers are spaced out, and they have to be strong. They have to be able to withstand, hurricanes, right? So how do you create stability? Well, you dig way down in the ground, you put pilings, concrete pilings in, then you pour a concrete block, and you take heavy bolts, and you bolt that tower, that steel tower, to the block. Now that's stable. I wouldn't call it exactly flexible. It has a certain degree of flexibility, but mostly you get the sense of rigidity, and that's not the kind of stability we're talking about when we play an instrument. We're talking about dynamic stability. So that would be like the stability of a surfer on a surfboard, right? That would be like stability when you walk. You don't fall over, hopefully. You take a step, and every time you take a step, you lose your balance. And then when your foot falls and you put your weight on it, you regain your balance. We don't even notice that because our confidence in that feeling of stability, we take it for granted after a while. That's actually the kind of feeling that you're trying to build with the trumpet. So when you feel awkwardness, try and get more comfortable. Make it simpler, make it easier. Remember, as Louis Maggio used to say, the baby crawls before it can walk. It's a baby, but it'll grow, he would say. So that's kind of how you need to think, even if you're an advanced player. Okay, so I'm going to suggest some ideas and then hope that you can hear some of these things in the sound. I'm going to play with that sound. To my ear is kind of plugged. It's not free to vibrate. And freedom of vibration is one of the primary things you're always trying to cultivate. Think about it relative to your voice. If I go, da, 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 see, that's not vibrating free. Da, that's what you're looking for. I'm going to give you a little picture. Something with which many of you may be familiar, I hope. You have a very finely made glass, like a good wine glass, for example, and you wet your finger, and you rub your finger on the top of the wine glass, and when your touch is just right, the glass starts to ring. So that's the kind of resonance that you're trying to produce. It's a light touch. It's a light touch. An easy flow, just the right amount of pressure, which would mean pressure here and energy in the airflow, and then you find that release. You have to play with what you might call the gas pedal. How strongly are you blowing? How strongly are you touching? And I would suggest to you that this touch is kind of like, think of a kiss. Like if you're kissing an infant, for example, of a very young child, and you kiss their forehead. Gentle, right? That's your starting point. Now, when you start really playing the instrument, there's a little bit more stress on the mechanism, but that feeling of gentleness allows you to find the place where it vibrates the best. This is all dependent on your ears. So, and it's hard to get it with a recording. Very difficult to get it with a recording. So, a couple things to listen for. One is there's a shine in the sound. So if you go, some people call it a buzz or a zing. I like to call it shine because that has better connotations. But if I play with a little shine in the sound, it's a quiet, very easily flowing airstream, not pressed, not squeezed, not choked. Some people say it's like whistling. You know, these are the kind of things that you want to be cultivating, and use your ears. Follow your ears when you do this. Once that sound is right, get it to be stable, which means regulating your flow. I often use the illustration of like if you're bowling and you let the ball swing and then you lay it down and it has stability as it rolls down the aisle. Completely stable, lots of energy. That's kind of like the feeling of what's happening with the air. You release it. Once it's released, it just keeps going, just like that bowling ball, and has that feeling of energy that is then delivered to the pins. In this case, that energy stimulates the vibration of your lip. So we're going to go back to this original exercise that Schlossberg recommended. And I want to point out something very important. When we read instructions, we interpret them. And how we interpret them will depend on how our body works, because we're giving our body ideas. And what I want to suggest to you is turn it around the other way. So listen for the qualities in the sound. Listen for the qualities of movement, the sensations that are balanced, that have a sense of coordination, gracefulness, smoothness, strength, balance. One of the best words I can think of to describe it. And when everything comes into balance, that dynamic balance I was talking about before, now you're doing something that's going in the right direction. And you know it. You can feel it and you can hear it. So even if all you do is practice this little exercise once a day, but you're really concentrating on even one of the elements that we just talked about, your playing is going to improve. And you need to be able to test that. So for example, the next day you try it and maybe it doesn't work as well and you get frustrated and you end up trying harder. No, relax. Maybe don't do the exercise that day. Do something that makes you feel comfortable. Follow your common sense, as it were, instead of following the instructions. If I followed these instructions, it would completely mess me up. I heard Hirsa say one time, he was responding to somebody in a master class, I believe, that said, asked a question about embouchure. And Hirsa said, boy, if I thought about that, I wouldn't be able to play the trumpet at all. And that's interesting. I want you to take that to heart. It's not thinking, it's sensing. It's becoming aware, extremely aware of one simple thing at a time. So we're going to go through these long tone drills. We'll get to that next. But this buzzing thing is controversial. I'll probably do at least one, maybe more segments on this. Depends on the questions that I get from people. But it is controversial. Some people say never buzz on the mouthpiece. Other people say you have to, like Schlossberg says, you have to do it. You have to do it at least 2 minutes a day before you do anything else on the instrument. What you need to know is, and I'm strongly recommending that you follow this, you already know how to play the trumpet to some degree. Compared to somebody who doesn't play the trumpet, you're an expert. It doesn't matter what level you're playing at. Now, of course, we can all improve. I try to improve every day myself. My improvements are more subtle, but I can notice them, and I can also test them. So wherever you are in terms of your supposed level as a trumpet player, you already know how to play. You're trying to build on that, not to come up with some new idea or new formula that's suddenly going to solve all your problems. Famous quote by the great John Faddis. He said, "There are no secrets, only work." I like that. But there are things that are secrets to you and secrets to me, things that we have that are new discoveries. And that's what these exercises are for. So I hope you have fun with this process. Go practice, see what you can accomplish, and I'll look forward to seeing you again. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.